fire, 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 fire.
Alright, what is this? Visa response to censoring Steam games? Let me guess. They told you to kick rocks. What are you gonna do? Use another payment platform? Ha! Don't make me laugh.
Imagine trying to buy a game on Steam only to find out it's vanished. Not because it's illegal, but
No
because
way.
Visa and MasterCard decided you can't buy it. Over the last few weeks, tens of thousands of games have been removed from both Steam and itch.io, and it's all due to pressure from payment processors.
And now, for chat, now it's content policy updates and payment compliance issues and how they need to, censor content and have mature filters. Bro, just say censorship. Say it with your chest. Don't be a coward. I hate the PR speak that they try to, guise it under, oh, well, we're protecting our brand and stuff.
This isn't just about a few controversial titles. It's affecting everything from small indie projects to mature but otherwise legal games. It's a new reality where gamers no longer get to decide what they can buy. But gamers aren't just sitting back. There are reports of a mass campaign operating.
What is this? Collective Shadows able to get for these weekends, Saturday and Sunday, we're gonna call the frick out of them. Call these numbers, hold down if you hear a robo voice, US, Canada, International. I wonder if that actually will do anything.
Fighting fire with fire. Their goal? To bombard MasterCard and Visa with calls and emails, mirroring the tactics used by groups like Collective Shout, who initially targeted Steam.
Frickin'
Collective
Karens,
Shout
bro.
claimed victory with around 1,000 emails, and gamers believe they can collectively shout much, much louder.
Of course they can. Karens are not as powerful as incels.
Simply letting
Incels are more
MasterCard
powerful.
and Visa know, hey, these games we want to buy are legal. Let us spend our money. So, as gamers express their frustration, Visa has responded to multiple emails with what appears to be a copy-paste response. I've seen multiple different emails, but they all had the exact same reply, so let's see what Visa has to say about the situation. Thank you for reaching out and sharing your perspective. As a global company, we follow the laws and regulations everywhere we do business. This sounds fair. Visa says they follow the law. Obviously, if something is illegal, that is its own situation.
Steam has literal games where you dismember people with chainsaws or, rip them apart with knives. I'm playing like Dead by Daylight and stuff like that. But God forbid there's a nipple or a suggestive anime girl. The hypocrisy is mind-numbing. They're gonna start. What if they start censoring GTA because of this pressure? You never know. You give them an inch, they take a mile.
And I would agree that it should be banned from Steam.
Yeah, God
but
forbid a
these
titty.
games we are talking about are legal, which is the problem. While we
everyone's
explicitly
in
prohibit
danger.
illegal activity on our network, we are equally committed to protecting legal commerce. If a transaction is legal, our policy is to process the transaction. We do not make moral judgments on legal purchases made by consumers. This is a very strong statement. Visa claims they don't judge what people buy if it's legal, and if a purchase is legal, they process it. This sounds great. This is what you would assume a payment processor would do. But if you have been paying attention at all to the situation, you would know this is simply not true. From games to crypto, guns, anime, porn, even energy companies, and so much more. But back to Visa's statement. If they don't make moral judgments, what does that even mean? It means they claim they don't care if content is adult, violent, or controversial as long as it's legal. They say their job isn't to decide what's right or wrong morally, but just to make sure money moves for legal products. So they are saying one.
But they're being hypocritical, and that's what hurts the most. They're not being transparent. They're changing their minds on a dime. They're pressuring different video games, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter to them because it's just a bunch of Karens that don't like certain things and censoring things that they disagree with. It's BS. It's bullshit.
But then doing the exact opposite. Visa continues in the email. Visa does not moderate content sold by merchants, nor do we have visibility into the specific goods or services sold when we process a transaction. This claim is also very clear. Visa says they don't look at the content being sold. Visa and MasterCard are intertwined in so many businesses around the world, you can't actually expect them to go through every single one to review and moderate everything. Visa also says they don't see what's being sold when money moves. So if they don't see the content, how do they know if something is quote-unquote
They're lying! That's why!
risky? Well, they rely on reports from banks themselves, complaints from the public, or even activist groups to flag a merchant as risky. So Visa...
This is what gamers are gonna do. They're going to lash out, they're going to make a bigger stink than the Karens, and they're gonna see consequences.
Won't look at every single game.
I hope
but if
this
a platform
changes.
like Steam has a lot of content that's getting complaints, Visa can view the entire platform as a risk, which is how Collective Shout were able to get Visa and MasterCard to listen to them, by painting Steam and itch.io as this very bad place, asking them to demonstrate corporate social responsibility and immediately cease processing payments.
And again, Steam and itch.io are being pressured because there's no other option. What are you gonna do? Start making crypto like available on Steam? Do you know how many people don't use crypto? Do you know how much money they're going to lose? It could potentially like bankrupt the company. Potentially. I'm not a business person, but it can.
Payments. But Visa continues in their email. When a legally operating merchant faces an elevated risk of illegal activity, we require enhanced safeguards for the bank supporting those merchants. The last part is key. Visa says if a store has a high risk of illegal activity, they make the banks working with that store take extra steps to be safe. But notice they don't say the content is illegal, just that there's a risk of it. Visa
exactly, they're lying!
Claims that they do not make moral judgments on legal purchases and do not moderate content. But let's compare that to what Valve and itch.io actually said about the recent changes. In classic Valve fashion, they were quiet on the issue, with the only official information we have from them is the new rule change and an official worded response they gave out to multiple different journalists.
If your payment processor controls your speech, you're not a game dev. You're actually being held hostage. The fact that payment processors think that they can do this when they have absolutely no say in what games are and aren't, and they're just like a vehicle that essentially takes money out of a transaction just for providing a service that does absolutely nothing. They take a cut, chat. They take a cut for doing nothing, and they want more, and they want to censor you.
Response, Valve hinted heavily that payment processors were threatening to cut them off. They stated they had to retire certain games because
what else are you gonna do?
Would prevent customers from buying any titles on Steam. This made it clear that Steam was now at the mercy of these payment processors, despite Valve's usual hands-off approach to legal content. itch.io was even more direct. They flat out stated they changed their rules because payment companies threatened to block all payments on their platform.
Yeah.
So if Visa isn't making moral judgments or moderating content, why were these threats happening over legal material? Is Visa implying Steam and itch.io are lying? Well, the answer...
What happens when they start flagging dialogue as hate speech? Like, say, a video game that talks about racism and shows the bad sides and shows historically accurate depictions. Like, for example, off the top of my head, with Django, like, they show actual racism because it's a historical piece of art. Even though it's bad, it's still something that shows how racism is real and was real back in the day. When controversial plot lines get you delisted as a video game because you're showing dialogue that exists like that, or when AI moderation, God forbid, for example, like PayPal or Visa or MasterCard pulls quotes out of context and then says, yeah, they said the N-word, we don't care about the context or what it means in the video game, we want it off the platform. Like, imagine they start doing that shit. Yeah, Metal Gear and Deus Ex will get banned, yeah. It's crazy to me that that they are allowed to get away with it. It's not even about morality, it's about control. Games are art, music is art, movies are art, and right now, corpo borpos are acting like art has to be brand safe. It's actually insane. Then start banning all the naked ladies in the Louvre. Yeah, they're naked, they show them, they popping some boobs, They showing their nippies,
is in one
but they
big word,
won't.
risk. Visa states they require enhanced safeguards when there is an elevated risk of illegal activity, but risk is a broad term. Often, it's not actually about illegal content, but about anything that might generate bad press or public protests. This gives power to groups like Collective Shout. They sent numerous emails, made phone calls, and ran public campaigns painting Steam and itch.io as risky places, urging these payment processors to—
Me going to an art museum and seeing a woman's boobie, yeah, that's a risk to my, that's a brand risk to my own brain. No, I just can't see women. Naked women, they hurt my brain. No.
Cease business, which obviously led into
Take
them
it
then
down!
pressuring Valve. These payment processors hold all this power because almost everyone
Time
uses
to
their
ban 'em.
cards. So when they label a platform as risky, which often just means enough people complained, they can directly threaten that platform with losing access to their entire payment network. This also isn't just about Steam and itch.io either. We've seen similar problems in Japan where businesses selling certain types of legal adult content have lost payment options from companies like Visa.
Yeah, we talked about this. It happened last year. Yeah, they're talking about how basically they're being bullied right now.
Often under the same risk umbrella. Even Visa's CEO in Japan has been vocally against adult content. This shows a clear
What a
pattern.
rat.
Payment processors, despite their
Roach
claims,
out.
directly influence what can be sold. If they decide a business is risky, even for legal content, they can effectively shut down that business's ability to operate. So,
Chat, I could be considered a brand risk because I'm an anime girl with big boobs. Like, think about that. I use PayPal as a tool, right, to get donations. They could cut that off and frick me. They could do this to anyone. They could do this to any VTuber. They could do this to a content creator they don't like of what they say. Oh, you're a brand risk because you talk about politics. It's bad no matter what. They're gonna keep pushing. It's so not good.
this email from Visa is a clear example of a big company saying one thing, while their actions and the statements of the
PayPal
platforms
does
they
this
work
shit
with
too.
show something completely different. Now, it's also important to remember, as this video did have a focus on Visa, there are other payment processors involved as well. There are some reports from people calling MasterCard that issues have escalated to a higher department, as they have been getting calls about this all week. Whether MasterCard's higher department actually
Interesting.
does something is a different question that we will just have to wait to see. While the exact behind-the-scene details of what
It's a
happened
mafia.
between payment processors and Steam are unknown, one thing is clear. Visa claims of no moral judgments don't match reality. They
Yeah.
use vague terms like risk to deflect responsibility while controlling what content is bought and sold. This situation makes one—
What happens when a game gets nuked off of itch.io or Steam? There's no appeal button. There's no council or public trial for the public to have a say. It just disappears, right? Your audience doesn't get notified, the people that bought your game. You don't get an explanation. The devs just wake up to like a dead store page and a polite email saying, sorry, your title no longer meets our community guidelines. Sucks to suck, chud. Like, what guidelines? Like, what do you mean? And let's be real. They do this type of behavior quietly to avoid headlines. Nobody wants the smoke of like Steam removes game due to sexual content. They just sweep it under the rug and hope that nobody notices.
One thing very clear. Payment companies like Visa and MasterCard have huge unchecked power. They shouldn't be allowed to dictate what legal content can be bought or sold online simply by labeling it risky. Because what really is risky? This unchecked power must be challenged. Payment processors, with their monopoly on transactions, operate as essential services, like electricity or water. They should be forced to provide fair access to all legal purchases.
Even with regulations, unfortunately, they're still not perfect, and it sucks. It's really unfair. Even with the government, like, regulating the internet providers, water providers, electricity, it's still not good enough. it still would be better if they did regulate them, but you know, it is what it is.
Something hopefully we see happen in the future. That's why collective action is so important, from calling and emailing Visa and MasterCard directly to supporting policies like the Fair Access to Banking Act. Gamers are...
And then again, we talked about this not even an hour ago, they always veil it under the guise of protecting children and saying like, oh, well, you shouldn't have access to this kind of content because kids could potentially access it, but these Karens don't take care of their own kids, and then they cry online about how their kids are like, you know, they see this content because they're too busy, I'm too busy doing my job. And it's like, Karen, you could just stop crying and take away the iPad from your fucking kid. You're giving them access because you're not paying attention and too busy crying online.
Making their voices heard. They're now telling elected officials that these powerful companies are overstepping by blocking legal purchases. There are petitions already, with over 100,000 signatures, and I'm sure it will only grow as gamers start to realize how bad this problem really is. So what do you think about Visa's email? Do you think Steam and itch.io removed tens of thousands of games just because they wanted to, and then blamed it on payment processors for no reason? One thing is clear. Gamers aren't accepting this response, and they want payment processors to stop deciding what content can be sold.
Disgusting. Disgusting. This isn't about morality, bro. It's about, quote-unquote, risk mitigation. MasterCard and PayPal do not give a frick about if your visual novel is art. They care if a Karen from Australia calls in and tells them how they're not gonna buy they're gonna stop using Visa and MasterCard to buy their stuff. It's so bad, and they cater to them. They'll kill your game, your art, your music, your dev teams that you support and like, and they just want to ruin it for everybody. This is a really good analogy, actually. This kind of falls under the monopoly thing with like water and electricity. It's like cutting the power to the whole city because one apartment played music too loud. Like, what the frick are you doing? And then you take it a step further and say, well, we've gone this far. We might as well push even further and take down the power for the entire state because of a couple of people that are some bad apples. Regulating them like utilities would be a big step in the right direction. Again, it's not perfect. I'm not saying that the government regulating utilities is fantastic. We all suffer from it. But letting them have this fucking duopoly and this monopoly is not good. It's terrible. Give them an inch, they go a mile. Yep. You can't let them do what they want. A free market cannot exist without regulations. Again, if you had an auction house for a video game and there was just two people that controlled the entire supply on the auction house, wouldn't you think that's really unfair? That's literally what Visa and MasterCard are doing. There are other payment processors, they just bully everyone else out of it.
Fire, 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 fire.